All right. So, today what I'll be talking about is a very, very, very important topic in spirituality. It's not a topic that's very common or popular, or even regarded as a serious topic in India, but it is actually something vital for all those who are in integral yoga or evolutionary spirituality, and that is called spiritual bypassing. Now, spiritual bypassing is a concept that was invented by 1984. A psychologist called John Wellwood was the first person who first framed the concept. And what it basically means is, if there is trouble in your psyche, trouble in your growth, you avoid that or you deny that by trying to jump to a higher level of consciousness. You bypass the trouble, yeah, you just sidestep. It's not even, that's why it's called a bypass. So you jump to spirit. That is what they call it. You jump to spirit and you jump prematurely. What is the problem with jumping prematurely to spirit? You become Baba Ramdev. Yeah. Yeah. He actually has no problem stating publicly that he can cure people of being gay. Now he has bypassed everything at all levels, it seems. Because the body started vibrating intensely with all the sadhana, and little bit Shakti also moved, and so all the other intellectual and emotional and psychological processings that need to be done, basic knowledge of human nature that needed to be done, has been lost. Bypassing is one of the hugest problems in people in sadhana, people doing any kind of spiritual process. Bypassing is one of the problems, and unfortunately it is actually seriously recommended in so many schools or in so many methods as an effective way. Now, sometimes when the pain is too great, the trauma is too great, bypassing is actually helpful. But if you really want to become authentic in your yoga, you really want to become authentic in your spirituality, you really want to be integral, if you bypass, then you have just created more trouble late. You become a problematic kind of person. You will, of course, grow rapidly, because a lot of energy that you would have spent in processing and dealing with your issues, you have now used that in developing psychologically or developing spirituality. So externally you look like you have progressed, except that you become a nuisance for those who are now relying on you, or those who are thinking that you have become very. So this notion of spiritual bypassing is very vital. We need to understand that we are not doing any kind of spiritual bypass, and we need to be even very clear that when we go to a teacher or a school, we are not being given spiritual bypasses instead of actual authentic processes to transform. Because the bypass doesn't transform, the bypass takes you ahead, and everything that you were supposed to deal with at a certain time in life, the amount of karma that you were supposed to deal with from a certain period to another certain period, you have just bypassed, and you think you have made progress, but that karma doesn't go away. It comes to bite you in the ass later, guaranteed. So the bypass is actually quite a destructive thing also. Now I am talking from a yogic perspective. The notion of the bypass in the Western literature is somewhat different, but for us everything is yoga, for me everything is yoga, so I will of course speak from the yogic perspective. I see so many examples of this in what are supposed to be spiritual teachers or what are supposed to be spiritual communities, that now I have finally bit the bullet and I have said that we must speak up. Because this is going to be perhaps one of my more unpopular talks. Because a lot of people, their basic illusions are going to be going to be going to be shattered. So there are about 9 or 10 basic methods of bypass. We'll go through them one at a time. Yeah. There are 9 or 10 bypasses. Yeah, instead of going the long route, you can take now the freeway to town. Yeah, that's what it is. So the first bypass is called the positivity bypass. Yes, relentless positivity. No matter what, be positive. All is good. Yes, everything is fine. The universe is kind and loving and harmonious. Yeah. The problem with that, while it is true that at its core consciousness is very blissful, consciousness is Ananda, the problem with that is the actual hard work that people need to do of healing themselves from their grief and their trauma. They are basically told there is no grief, there is no trauma. You have no negative side to your character, there is no shadow. Now, for those in integral yoga, like we are in integral yoga, we cannot run away from our shadow. In fact, in integral yoga, it is very clearly understood the only reason you have shadow is because you have substance. There is some worth and value in you. That is precisely why you have a shadow, you have a negative side, you have a. Because in integral yoga, the problem or the end goal is not perfection. I spoke about this yesterday also. Purnata. Purna means complete. Nowhere in our literature has Purna been described as perfect. Because Shiva is Purna and he is very far from being perfect. He is the complete opposite of perfection. Not when he is the Nataraja. Nataraja is perfect. Yeah, but even over there, once in a while, he gets the fit and he dances with his leg held up in the air. Yeah. He is complete. He is a person who will do anything according to the reality and the truth of the situation at that moment. So a person, even Vishnu is the same, there is no trick he will not pull. Krishna, there is no trick that Krishna will not pull, because they are not people seeking perfection. Even though the Gaudiya Sampradaya Vaishnavas will tell you Krishna is perfection and all that, but okay, that is their problem. That if you look at how he acts throughout the Mahabharata, you are really a little taken aback. Yeah? If we started acting like that, so Arjuna says all the good reasons for it. So this all is good, all is bliss, there is no shadow. Two reasons. One is, if you say something like that, people feel little jolt of happiness. They want to be assured that fundamentally the universe is run by a very loving mummy and daddy. Not always. That they will make all the pain and trouble and suffering go away, but it's not really a very psychologically healthy thing to say. So positivity bypass very often is because of immaturity, psychological immaturity. It's a very childish sort of thing to say, to not recognize that there is pain and sorrow and suffering, or that there are parts of me which are damaged, there are parts of me which require healing. To not recognize that there are any flaws at all, to deny the presence of flaws, to deny the presence of shadow, to deny the presence of suffering, that itself is a problem. Unfortunately, almost all of the new age functions with this one thing, they function with this one, all is bliss. Since most of the new age was fueled by drug use, I understand why. Because when you're stoned out of your mind, naturally all is bliss. So positivity bypass we cannot accept. Yeah. Then comes the cerebral bypass, the cerebral or the intellectual bypass, where you seek to understand everything. You seek to create systems around everything. You seek to create techniques around anything, methodologies, and then there are hierarchies and gradations, and That's a different level of consciousness. It is one of the greatest ironies in the world that the integral community is the most famous for the intellectual bypass. Because everything over there becomes, oh, that is a stage of development, that is a level of development, that is an early stage, that is a later stage. They are so busy analyzing and breaking it down that they never get down to doing anything much. So it becomes purely head games. It becomes purely head games, and it's all mind and thought, and the whole point of yoga is that the mind and thought should be still. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. So the minute you are in the intellectual bypass, you are gone out of yoga. No matter where, how interesting and wonderful you have reached the place. And one of the ways in which people are doing intellectual bypass, we had an example, that lady who used to sit over there, never ending fountain of questions. No? There would always be questions. One question, then a second question, then a third question, then a question related to some book that she had read, or it would never stop. It would never stop. And it was not for any kind of learning or any kind of wisdom. It was just very obviously because she was so uncomfortable with her own skin that she just didn't want to deal with it. It was a classic example. It was a classic example, and I see that with a lot of people also. They keep writing to me and asking me questions, clarifications, and I answer and I answer and I answer. Then finally I say, okay, enough. Now you do some sadhana, because you're not doing any sadhana. That is the reason why these questions are coming up. If you were really working on yourself, you wouldn't need to ask me these questions. That kind of shocks them, because they were all told that curiosity is a good thing, that to learn to understand is a good thing. Yes, but it should not become a crutch. It should not become an end in itself. Are you actually vibrating intensely? Are you progressing psychologically? Are you progressing spiritually? They immediately want to know, what are the stages of progress? What are the symptoms of that progress? But in that book, that person said, or I saw this person say, that the minute you have these external sources of input, and the minute you have these mind games, okay, this person is not really serious about self transformation. This person is not really serious about Atma Vichara. Unfortunately, Atma Vichara has become one of the biggest problems with the bypass, but we'll come to that towards the end, because that's one of the really important boulders in the path. So then we have, be a witness to everything that happens, the witness bypass. This is unfortunately becoming terribly popular today, where they teach you techniques and methods to dissociate from your pain, body actually. And you can just watch what is happening, you can just watch what is flowing out. So you observe your life instead of living it. And a lot of people use therapy also in the same way, where they just constantly digging deeper and deeper and deeper into the reasons why they are the way they are. There are multiple reasons. Gahano karmana gati. There is never any one reason. Yeah, all symptoms are overdetermined. There is never any one reason, but they will never be happy with that. And it was so fascinating for me to observe, and then I understood why I am the way I am. Yes, have you stopped doing that? Or is that not causing you any more pain? No, but they are very expert witnesses now. They are very expert observers. They are very detached from what is going on. And they actually think they are in Sakshi Bhav, and that is not Sakshi Bhav. Sakshi Bhav is something that happens at an energy level. It is not a mental thing. Sakshi Bhav is something that happens when you are in deep meditation, and it happens deep within your pranamaya kosha, and there is that aspect of consciousness which witnesses. It is not your mind and it is not your personality that witnesses. If you can feel yourself witnessing, or you can put yourself into witnessing, then that's not real witnessing, that's pseudo witnessing. The Sakshi Bhav is a different aspect of consciousness which is separate from the mind, and all these people who keep doing this blah 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 about witness never understand that. This is really going to make me unpopular. Okay. Somebody needs to say it, I am saying it. So what happens when you do witness is, in the early days it actually works tremendously. If you can just dissociate from your pain body, you can just observe your pain body, you can just observe your processes, yes, it actually helps a lot, because you're not paralyzed with the pain that is actually functioning and flowing within you. But over time, these people, their equanimity, their stillness, their peace, it becomes more and more difficult, and anything can shake it up. So people go into specialized places where they are taught to witness themselves. They are not given any food, they are made to sit still for a long time. Sensory deprivation happens. And you actually think, wow, I have made a spiritual breakthrough. Classic bypass. I'm not going to identify the processes, everybody knows those processes. That's like institutionalized, organized bypass. Because you see the people who come out of that. Are they really people who have come out with any wisdom? No, they've come out with a very magnificent way to manage their pain. And these processes become very popular because it enables people to go back into the madhouse that is their career, and now they become much more effective and efficient. They don't really feel the daily grind, the daily humiliations, the daily problems, because they've learned how to dissociate from that. So they actually think we have become more spiritual. Just yesterday when the Kulaba group, I was telling them that just because you have an exciting bodily experience or an exciting mental experience or an exciting emotional experience or even an exciting experience with the breath, that still doesn't mean you had a good and authentic spiritual experience. And very, very, very few yogis or schools I see are nowadays willing to come out with this ancient truth. Because, how will the numbers come? How will the dakshinas come? What they are providing is exciting physical but this witnessing business has become like it's an entire structure, a truth that is sufficient unto itself, So long as you can witness, I am witnessing, therefore I have. No, that's a wrong. You are not even witnessing. Because anything, you need to go back every year. If it is authentic Sakshi Bhava, it never goes away. You don't need to go back every year into that hothouse environment, into that controlled space where they don't feed you and they don't let you sleep and they don't let you talk to anybody. So your excess psychic energy builds up anyway, there is no discharge anyway. So you actually think, oh wow, spiritual experience. An authentic Sakshi Bhava doesn't go away. It's quite a nuisance. This is something you turn on and off to manage your life. I'm having pain, I will witness it. No, you are dissociating from it. You are observing it like a scientist observes a worm under a microscope. It is not helping you in any great way. Yes, temporary there is some help. So yeah, unfortunately the witness bypass is today, because it is so effective in the early stages, and that's all that people really care of, because it's so effective in the early stages, it is packaged and sold as entire authentic sadhanas in themselves, entire authentic spiritual paths in themselves. And that's simply not true. I don't want to say more because my temper rises when I think of how people are misled, with so-called witnessing. Then we have the pragmatism bypass. This is what most people, no, I don't have time for all that. I'm a very practical person. There are things to be done. Yeah, life must go on. There are deadlines to be met, there are children to be taken to school or admitted in college, and that there are so many important and significant things happening in life that I have no time to think about my life, and I have really no time to grow, because I am so busy doing all the pragmatic things that need to be done. This is the commonest bypass, and this is the bypass that is rewarded. Yeah, society rewards it, organizations reward it, people reward it. What a hard-working, practical person, until that person, if he has some kind of good karma, will probably be lucky enough to have a stroke. Yeah, because then he or she can lie in bed and think seriously about their life. No, the people who say, no, I can't take that much effort to eat healthily. I can't take out the time to exercise. All these things happen only till they have the first heart attack. After that, not only they eat healthily, the rest of the family has to suffer with them. Yeah. And magically, the time for exercise, suddenly 26 hours in the day. Yeah. And they are still not doing anything spiritual. They are still doing a pragmatism bypass, because now they don't want to die. Now they are coming back to a practical way to keep the madness going. Anything that will avoid connecting to a larger consciousness, anything that will avoid connecting you to a larger reality or larger responsibility, you will find practical reasons why it cannot be done. So that is the pragmatism. It's unfortunately way too common. It's way too easy. Then we come to the other polar opposite of the pragmatism bypass, and that is everything is one. All is one. Yeah. There is no two. We are all interconnected with everything. Yes, that is true. At the highest level of attainment, that is true. Till that time, it is just pure and simple bullshit. And not only bullshit so fresh it hasn't hit the ground as yet. Whenever I hear people say this all is one business, I'm like, what? If you are in that all is one state, you know what happens? You can't bear clothes. Your clothes will feel like a restriction to you. Now, this is a magnificent way of avoiding any kind of engagement or any kind of responsibility. All is one. Whatever is needed will spontaneously arise like mushrooms after the rain, or algae, or you know. Yeah. It's a very good way to excuse your cowardice, because all is one. After all, that person is also only me. So, I don't have to confront and challenge and arrest and put up in prison. All is one. I don't have to make a value judgment that is my society better or worse than other societies, because all is one. And some societies are certainly better than other societies. We should not pretend it is not so. This is the worst kind of spiritual laziness. I will go deeper. It is the worst kind of spiritual denial. Only enlightened people are allowed to say the all is one. If you are not enlightened, shut up. You are not allowed to say all is one. There was very funny line, some which movie I don't remember. Woody Allen says, I never really understood the people feeling connected to nature. I'm always two with nature. he feels he never feels that he has merged. And see, a large part of the bypass is because people don't want to do the hard work. They don't want to put in the effort, they don't want to put in the mile, they don't want to put in the years of sadhana. Yoga doesn't lie to you. When you come in, they say 13 years, are you willing to invest in this? But that other place, they give it over the weekend, or or in like 2 years. Yoga is very clear about it. It takes 13 years to completely transform a person, to completely transform the karma, to bring that person to that. And no guarantee over there, but 13 years is normal. Now, bypassing is usually because people don't want to accept that we have so much trouble within ourselves. We have so much pain within ourselves, so much sorrow, suffering, damaged parts of our psyche, immature parts. In so many ways we are less, because all is one and all is perfect also. No? So, that is So, bypassing very often is simple refusal to look at reality in the eye. That's all it is. And laziness. Laziness is also, actually at its core, laziness is about not accepting reality. That this much needs to be done, the lazy person refuses to accept it. Because a person accepts this much needs to be done and is doing it, you would never call that person lazy. At its core, laziness is always about a refusal to accept reality. So, the all is one bypass is very easy actually to demolish, because they are not. Now we come to the more dangerous one, not just all is one, non-duality. Now this, as you know, I get, my anger goes up very strongly when I hear this. This is one of the commonest spiritual delusions that people get into, that we are doing non-dualism. Yeah, they can't say Advaita properly, which is what non-dual means. They can't say Atma Vichara properly. They can't say Viveka Chudamani properly, which is like the ultimate text on the matter, but they are all in non-duality. Now, non-dual bypass is very, very popular all over the world. People actually come and sit in Tiruvannamalai. In India, in Tamil Nadu, people come from abroad and have the cheek to teach non-dualism, and we are a tolerant people. We don't go with torches and dandas and burn the whole thing over the head. We're like, let them be. Everybody is moving at his own path, let it be. People have the cheek to come to India in Tamil Nadu, yeah? In Tiruvannamalai, they sit and they teach non-dualism. Now, obviously, they will teach non-dualism because none of the people are going to do any damn sadhana at all. Non-dualism is the most popular amongst people who do not like to do processes. People who do not want to put in the work, non-dualism. The script is already in the can. Yeah? That is not non-dualism. That is something called being an ajivika. We had those people in India. They were hardcore fatalists, in that there is nothing you can do, good or bad, which is not already fated by karma. So don't give yourself any grief about it. That was, of course, very, very popular with the ruling classes, because every king likes to be told that when I massacre people, it is because I was fated to do so. I don't need to give myself any pain and suffering over it. Or when I see somebody's money or his wife, that is also because I was fated to do it. So the way this non-dualism comes is not even Advaita. Because Advaita has the problem, it requires brains. It requires real hard work. You got to read Adi Shankara on the matter, you got to go to the Upanishads. All that is work, we have to work, we are spiritual. Non-dualism. One of life's great tragedies, for me actually it's quite amusing also, is watching these non-dual teacher satsang tapes, because they have these people, they have these really sad people try, really wanting to move and grow. They don't have the equipment up here to do Atma Vichara. And the teacher knows nothing else. He has nothing except self-inquiry to pray. He does not know how to give any other kind of sadhana to these people. You just put them into 1 year of asana and pranayama, they would go rocketing. But because it's all I have to say is that the minute I hear the word non-dual, I zone out nowadays. I'm like, okay, bypass. That's not real, genuine spiritual. It's different if it is a hardcore Vedanti who's talking from the text or something, and he never says non-dual. He always says Advaita. Non-dual sunte hi I know what is going on. It is it's tragic. It's really tragic. But okay, that is part of the game. That is part of the fun. That is part of the Maya. But don't fall for that. Don't fall for that whole thing of there is one unitary consciousness and all that. That is not easy to attain. It requires tremendously hard work. I'm not saying all non-dual schools are like that, but most non-dual schools, the teaching is there is no need to work. Everything is already there. You just need to wake up to that fact. They are never going to wake up to that fact. Because only people who are born enlightened wake up to that fact. Okay, now we are coming to a really dangerous one. The non-dual is still in a sort of delusion kind of thing, but this is really dangerous because this puts the burden back onto the person experiencing, and that is called the you are accountable for everything bypass. Whatever has happened to you is because it was your responsibility. You created it. It was your vibration. There was a lesson you needed to learn. What is the lesson that the universe was attempting to communicate to you? That I should not listen to a dumbass like you. Everything is a mirror. Every time you judge somebody, that is a reflection of something within yourself. Yeah, we've all heard that. Yeah. People who go about raping and massacring should be judged severely. You cannot just say they are a reflection of our inner darkness and leave it at that. Yes, of course they are a reflection of our inner darkness. We are bloody decent human beings. We don't act out that darkness. This, unfortunately, becomes popular when organizations become too large. Then there aren't enough qualified people to help and facilitate and catalyze the numbers that come. So they just turn everything back. It's just like a jujitsu move or an aikido move, you just turn everything back onto them. Acha, this happened to you. Why do you think it happened? You don't need to give any practical help. You don't need to give any practical advice. You don't need to use some kind of insight. You just turn it back to that person. You are accountable. The universe is attempting to communicate. Come into Sharanagati. Surrender to the process. The kind of damage that causes, it is incalculable. Incalculable. because it is a concept that is lifted from therapy, but the therapist doesn't abandon you. When the therapist asks you, why do you think you feel that, he or she is there with you to help you to facilitate. Over here, you are just taken into the middle of the lake and suddenly the oars are pulled away and spontaneously learn how to swim or fly or whatever it is that you need to do. If everything in life becomes a reflection and a mirror and there is no judgment and there is no wrongdoing, you don't need to do the work. No, you don't need to say these aspects of my personality are bad, I should avoid them, I should suppress them, I should eliminate them. So in a deep sense, it is emotional callousness. That is what I see. That when you really don't care about other people, you come into this holy state of non-judgmentalism. What can I say? What you're saying is, I really can't be bothered to hear one more stupid story. I really cannot muster up the enthusiasm to do some help here, or this person doesn't have the resources which makes it worth my spending my time and attention on that person, which is very often the real reason. So you give something that makes that person feel actually much worse, because now it is his or her problem. I created this reality and you're off the hook. All right. Then there is a smaller version of that which is not quite so bad. It's actually quite psychologically healthy also, but in the long term it becomes a problem, and that is called the "you are not your story" bypass. Whatever has happened to you no longer defines you. Yeah, these cults especially love this. From today you are a new person, you are reborn. While it is very true we are not our story, to pretend that our story does not have meaning and relevance and impact, to pretend that what we have experienced, what we have suffered, what we have endured, that those things do not leave permanent marks on our psyche or do not leave permanent marks on our behavior, that is complete and utter foolishness. Again, it is an avoidance of, because it is true, spiritual community should not become therapists. Many people come to spiritual communities, they come to a spiritual mentor, and what they actually need is a therapist. I myself had to say it, I am your spiritual mentor, not your therapist. So the unconscious contract is, now I have a place, now I have a spiritual place, a safe place where I can work out my issues. When you say you are not your story, you are giving that person permission to stop being responsible for what they have done, because I am not my story. A genuine conversion is a complete change of character, complete change of psyche. That is much rarer than you would imagine. And the kind of sidestepping of responsibility that provides is awesome, because I am not my story. I am no longer that person. May be true, may not be true. By your future interactions, and of course many people, like I say, yes, you won't do that same thing again, but you will do similar things. And you will keep saying, I am not my story. But the "you are not my story" bypass fundamentally does have some truth in it. A human being is more than the sum of their experiences. A human being is more than the sum of whatever has been done to them or whatever they have done. Because somebody is a very wonderful person. She comes home and she sees her husband is busy having sex with somebody, her best friend, and she picks up a knife and stabs that person. Now that is an understandable response. Yes, that is a break in the psyche because of anger. But from now on, the rest of her life, who is she? She is the person who stabbed her husband. No matter what positive qualities, no matter all the good that she has done, that one intense experience will now define her forever, perhaps even in her own life. So in that sense, it is correct. You are not your story. You are not the worst thing you have done. Yeah, but we remember people by the worst thing they have done. No? You are not the worst thing you have done. So in that sense, it is actually correct. But when it becomes an excuse for laziness, it is not correct, because it is true. People are not the worst thing they have done. They are not the best thing they have done also. Because that is again the perfection trap. And the idea is to never go for perfection. The idea is to become purna, complete. Yes? So it is true that we should not judge a person for the worst thing they have done. It is also true that we should not be dazzled by the best thing they have done. That might have been a fluke. I know. As a yogi, I am not supposed to talk like this, but I am like, only yogi should talk like this. This is all. What kind of a yogi is he? I've actually had this question. I'm like the real sort, the authentic, hardcore, old style. All right. This next one, however, there is nothing to it that I can say other than it is completely evil. It is a vile thing. And I am using my words very, very carefully. I hate this. And that is the karmic contract bypass. Whatever has happened to you is a karmic contract. Apparently, in this school of thought, all the experiences in your life before you are born, you have one big board meeting with all the people who will be, and okay, so you can, and I will, and so I'm saying, acha, what does that mean? It means that you sit with somebody and say, right, when I'm 3 years old, you have permission to rape me. The sheer absurdity of the position is very clear. Yeah, or what Mao did in China, in 1958, 45 million people died because of his experiments in agriculture. 45 million people made a contract with Mao that you can starve us to death. The Great Leap Forward. Much worse than Hitler, or Pol Pot killed 50% of his own Cambodians. They were a population of 4 million, 2 million died in the war. After the war, 1 million died because Pol Pot ordered everybody one fine day, abandon the cities. Cities are degenerate places. All of you will now live in the villages. 1 million people died in that. You mean to tell me they made an agreement with him that, so this, as yogis, we should not get into this, and this is a complete useless understanding of karma, because the vasana samaskaras determine your birth. There is no such thing as a board meeting and a karmic contract, and the minute I hear that, I just zone that person out, because they obviously can't find their ass in the dark. It's awful. It's just bloody appalling. This one thing is just appalling, and it comes from this misunderstanding of karma. It comes from this misunderstanding, and it comes from this whole business of Akashic records, where you can go and find out what happened. And yes, there is a large part of the people we meet, Rinanubandhan is there, the debt bond is there, that because certain things happened, they are now allowed to retaliate, or you are allowed to retaliate. Yes, to that extent it is true. But to say that everything is already in, then we are going back to that. We are going back to that you are accountable thing. This is the worst form of you are accountable bypass. And yogis know that you are not the only persons who could have been born to your parents. 20, 30 people had the same kind of asana samaskaras as you did. You just managed to jostle your way to the top of the queue and be born. If you had missed that chance, somebody else could have born in your place and be living your life. Okay, now that's complex. Yes, it is complex. This is awful. This is just something that, so, anytime you hear people talk karmic contract, please shut them down. It's a terrible, terrible idea. I think it's a diabolical idea. Only some kind of asura must have put it out there. It's a genuinely diabolical sort of idea. Or it's insanity. Mad people have come up with this idea. People who are clinically insane have come up with this idea. And the last one, this is going to be the most difficult because we have all these cultural issues around it. Compulsory forgiveness. Bypass. No matter what happens, you should be compassionate. No matter no matter what happens, you should forgive people for what has happened. Yeah, because if you do not forgive, you cannot progress. Who told you? Whenever I ask people that, who said you can't progress? Huh? the the really bad thing is people are pushed in communities, in spiritual communities, in groups, into forgiving things that they are not ready to forgive, and more damage is caused because of this fake forgiveness. Sometimes people are damaged very severely by their parents, for instance. Now, even saying that in India causes anxiety, because the whole notion is that the father is Shiva, the mother is Parvati. That is the default setting. All parents believe it, and they keep nailing it into their child's head, and then they teach something else to the children, that whatever happens in the home should never be articulated outside. So for years and years there is pattern of abuse going on, and the child has been conditioned into believing, I will be violating social norms, I will be violating spiritual norms, I will be just a bad person. And more than I can articulate, I have seen this happen, that when somebody finally reaches out for help because they are being tortured, what they are told is that this is the wrong thing that you're doing. You're criticizing your parents. That is not a good thing to do. After all, they are your parents. After all, they are your mother. They are just flat out denial. I myself suffered it, not that I reached out for help, because I knew none would be coming. But I never had any delusions about the goodness of parents, for that one reason. And that has made me a very, very strange and unusual person in India, because it takes a long time for people to wake up and realize that our parents were quite fallible human beings who were maybe doing the best they could. But from a very early age, I knew that parents are actually a big con job. Because the way it comes across in the culture, you're not allowed to criticize under any circumstance, no matter what is done. And which is why when there is rape and torture, the family runs to cover it up, because the social norm is so great that it cannot under any circumstance be revealed. Honor, izzat, man samman, all those garbage. But spirituality, it becomes a deeper problem, because especially the bhakti type people, oh, one must forgive. Maybe you're not ready to forgive, and you must accept, because the whole point of yoga is to be authentic, not to be holy. And if you are angry at that moment, you accept, I am still angry with what happened. I am not ready to forgive. I am not going to retaliate. That is a very different matter, because in most cases the fear is if the person won't forgive, he or she will retaliate. But as I keep saying, there is a reason why we like revenge, because revenge is about justice. It comes down to the whole thing of evil. Evil is always about a difference in power. If somebody feels that there will be severe and drastic consequences to me by my action, you don't do something bad to another person. It is only when you feel that there will be no consequence, I can get away with it, I have the power over that person, that you do that evil thing. Evil is always about power. Which is why revenge is so popular. The revenge movie will never go out of fashion for precisely this reason, because deep in our hearts, no matter how compassionate and forgiving, we know that is justice. We know that somebody had a position of power, somebody thought that I would not be hurt, so I can hurt. And now he is learning that the universe has a way of. So deep in our hearts, we know that. Now this fear that the person will turn violent is why, because some people, their violence is very justified. The kind of upbringings they've had, the kind of things that they have suffered, their violence is very justified. But given what happened in that Delhi bus incidents, for instance, who here is willing to forgive those people? I am not. Because that is not a case where the person was caught in the passion of the moment or insanity or something. It's just cold-blooded viciousness. And just because I wear malas, I am not going to pretend that I cannot recognize evil when I see it. And this pushing people, if you don't forgive, you will never heal, you will get cancer, you will get ulcers, all those are also wrong. Anger is actually very helpful. People get to do a lot of things because they are angry. I remember once when girl bought her boyfriend, he was very angry with her parents because they were opposing their marriage. And he was in a furious rage because the father had really humiliated him very badly. So he was, I'm going to get some acid and throw it on his face. I said, yeah, do it. Huh? I said, if you're willing to go to jail, you're willing to destroy your entire life, do it. If he has hurt you that much, nothing I say is going to make you feel better, do it. He just didn't know what to do. It's like he put a step and because he had come with a whole series of arguments as to how awful that girl's dad is, and I'm agreeing with him. Yeah, he's an awful man. I'm only telling you your life is screwed. So if you're okay with that, do it. I said, you don't want to throw acid. You are feeling that how you burnt, you want him to burn. You are burning with the shame and the humiliation. That's all you can think. He should burn in that same way. Now he really didn't know. He was just. I told him, the minute you get a good job, all these so-called objections will magically evaporate, or the minute your business starts doing well, it magically evaporates, because there is one universal treatment for all parental objections in India, that is called money. If you have enough of it, like water vapor from a hot rock, objections evaporate, so don't. So he was like, he actually asked that girl, what kind of spiritual guy is that? Yeah, ऐसी बातें करता है. She said, काम हुआ है कि नहीं? Did he set you right on track or not? That is all that matters. But what a thing to say. He came with a set of expectations. He came with a set of expectations that I will lecture him on forgiveness and compassion, and after all, your girl's father, and I had none of that. So he just didn't know what to do, because there is no pre-prepared script to interact. Now ab kya kare? So yeah, that was one of the funny. Supriya, the girl from America. Yeah.